Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. Later on, we're going to talk about road funding and, well, what's going on in the budget in the state of Colorado. But first, I love this woman, Michelle Sie Whitten, a good friend of mine who runs the Global Down Syndrome Foundation. Did I get that one right?
Yes, you did. You did.
All right. Now,
yes.
Both you and I have children with Down syndrome.
Yes.
And we face the same problem, which is that people come up and they see our children and they go, oh my God, your son is so cool. How do I get a child with Downs? And then we have to explain the waiting list program.
Yes, exactly.
The
randomness of it all.
The forms you have to fill out in order to order one.
Yes.
It is tough.
Yeah.
But for those who don't know, let's be honest, it is so rockin' cool.
It is. It's like winning the lottery.
It is like winning the lottery.
Absolutely.
Now,
except in Iceland.
Except in Iceland. I want to get it to Iceland in a second.
Yes. Okay.
All right. You and I have talked about this. When I found out my child had Down syndrome or was going to, I had a complete freaking meltdown. It was a bad, bad scene. I was in a terrible place. The research I did showed me my son was going to have a terrible life. I was going to have a terrible life. I mean, I lost it. I just lost it. And then, basically, the reincarnation of John Belushi comes into my life, turns everything upside down.
Yeah.
And I don't know a person in the world who's more in the moment than my son Chance.
Yeah.
And I can't help but be his entourage as he lives this party life. And it's the best frickin' thing ever. Yeah, it's challenging. Yeah, there's a lot of worries. Yeah, there's all sorts of issues.
Sure.
Was you took it you took it a little differently than I did because well, you're smarter, but is it just a defense mechanism that we have that we lean into our children with this handicap? Or is it honestly just cool as hell?
No, I think it's cool as hell, and people are getting more reticent to even call it something like a handicap or a disability. We tend to say differently abled. I know we're not supposed to be politically correct, but I like differently abled because Sophia has so many abilities, and to define her as disabled seems like an injustice. So differently abled all the way.
Yeah, you're politically correct.
Absolutely.
I'm not. We'll never agree on this.
It's not politically correct. I think it's accurately describing. There's a difference to me, you know, like politically correct for politically correct's sake versus like it actually accurately describes my daughter, which is differently abled. But anyway,
I can't leave my son alone. All right, I mean, he will light the house on fire because you know, why wouldn't you? There it is.
He's your son.
Right,
of course, he's going to light the house on fire.
The other day, I made the mistake of falling asleep, which I never can do in front of him.
Yeah.
I wake up, half of my patio furniture is in his bedroom. Why? Because, Dad, that's where it's supposed to go, you idiot.
I think genetically they're mostly us.
Yeah, I think so.
And then there's a little bit of that extra material that is Down syndrome. But I think the great news is that whether it's the Global Down Syndrome Foundation or other great national, international, or local Down syndrome organizations, I think we've done a great job in the last decade in portraying what our kids and adults can do. That's made a huge societal difference. And everybody's more accepting, the schools are more accepting. And guess what? When society accepts our children, they suddenly start to flourish, right? At the home, in the school, the opportunities they have, and we're able to unlock their abilities and we're able to see them in a glorious way, which we weren't probably a couple of decades ago.
And that's where my brain was locked in the wrong period. I was still locked in the 70s and 80s, you know, where I grew up.
I was noticing the suit. But
yeah, thank you. And
don't notice mine.
where my kid would come off this short bus.
Yes.
He'd go into some windowless room. At the end of the day, he'd come out of the windowless room. We wouldn't know his name. We'd make fun of him. The idea that my son would be that was horrific to me.
Heart-wrenching, yeah.
I take him to school, and everyone, hey, Chance, how are you? They have something called he has a peer mentoring program, which is a fancy way of saying different kids spend different portions of the day with him.
Right.
He learns more from his kids, his friends.
Right.
Some of these kids will come over, they'll spend the night for a sleepover party. I never thought he'd have that.
Yeah.
You know, and so the societal difference has made it all.
But it gets tough after they're adults.
Yep.
And it gets really tough when it comes to their medical care and the research that allows for better medical care. And that's why we started Global. You know, we didn't see research happening Down syndrome is still one of the least funded genetic conditions by our National Institutes of Health. And if you don't have research, you're not going to have good health outcomes. And unfortunately, there's a tie to Alzheimer's. We need to be addressing all this. We need to be addressing it today for the people who are adults now and the ones who are coming up that ladder, like Sophia and Chance.
When we were kids, a kid with Downs, 20, 25, 28, and that was his lifespan.
Yeah.
Hopefully Chance will outlive me by a long time, but that opens up a whole new host of medical issues that no one seems to be funding.
Sure.
You are part of going to Washington with some advocates.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Tell me about the subcommittee meeting and the testimony, which I saw online, which was it was spectacular.
Right. Well, you know how you were mentioning that I kind of look a little Asian, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm outed. My dad is Chinese, and so you know the report cards are a really big thing, and he always gives me an F for A for a lot of things at Global, but an F for NIH funding because it hasn't increased. Well, this congressional hearing, I believe, is finally going to change all that. It was the Labor, HHS, and Education Subcommittee on Appropriations. So these are the folks and beautiful people like Representative Cole, Representative DeLauro, both sides of the aisle, which is so great, right? You had Sherry Bustos and you had Kathy McMorris-Rogers. You had Pete Sessions. You know, you had all the Democrats and Republicans getting together. At the end of the hearing, they gave our self-advocate, Frank, a standing ovation. They said that's never happened in that hearing ever in the history of it.
And this is from the National Institutes of Health, who have put Down syndrome as the lowest funded condition that they work on.
Yeah, one of them. You know, if you look at it per capita, it's just nutty. Even in big terms, you know, there are rare diseases and stuff that are getting 200 million and we're getting 20 million. And we don't want them to not get their 200 million. We want more. And since the Congress has been very nice in increasing the NIH budget year on year for many years, we would love to get a piece of that and to be a priority. But the other thing is it doesn't just help 400,000 people with Down syndrome in the United States. It could absolutely help people who have cancer. People with Down syndrome don't get solid tumor cancers, right? But they're highly predisposed to leukemia. Unfortunately, 100% of them will have the brain pathology of Alzheimer's, 70% will have the dementia in their 40s and 50s. We have to address these things if we want our children, who will outlive us for the first time, to have a good quality of life. And that committee hearing, we had so many people say it brought together everybody from across the aisle, and they said that they had never heard such a powerful, more compelling hearing. So it was, you know, we had the standing ovation, and it was because of Frank. Frank is the self-advocate.
Tell me about Frank. I saw his testimony.
Yes.
Tell me who Frank is.
Frank Stevens is a Quincy Jones Exceptional Advocacy Award winner from Global. He also, I mean, nobody owns him. He's on the board of Special Olympics in Virginia. He does a lot with other Down syndrome organizations. He is his own man, and he has a brother who's a doctor, and he really gets the medical aspect of it. So he will share with you his fear of Alzheimer's. He will share with you that his life is worth living, and he is a proud man who happens to have Down syndrome.
That was a line that got me.
Yes.
Was here's this young man with Down syndrome.
Yes.
Remarkably articulate, and
yes.
my son is not. He does not speak well. Sure. I can understand him because we speak, you know, the fraternal brotherhood of guy language.
Yes.
But you know, when Frank said, "My life is worth living,"
sure,
you know, that was something we haven't heard, because we've put people like our children in institutions and tucked them out of sight for so long.
Yeah.
Now to see them, meet them, interact with them,
sure.
how do you say their life isn't worth it?
Absolutely. And he went on to say, you know, let's not go the way of Iceland in his testimony.
Let's talk Iceland.
Yeah, let's do that.
Iceland is a small nation. Let's remember it's 300,000 people. So, you know,
one Chinese home.
One Chinese home, one Google office. I mean, but still, they seemed very proud that they had handled the problem. Well, it's like getting rid of polio. We got rid of polio. It's no longer an issue.
Right.
We got rid of Down syndrome. It's no longer an issue.
Sure.
And for a small community like ours, that's a terrific thing. But to get rid of polio, they didn't kill all the people with polio, but that seems to be what they want to do with Downs. They're saying, now with all this great testing, we can terminate a pregnancy as soon as we find out that this person has one too many chromosomes, and then we don't have to worry about it.
There are some medical professionals in the United States who have that same mentality, and while I will argue that what's happening in Iceland is not eugenics, because that would be the government or some power saying you have a fetus with Down syndrome, you need to terminate it, there is a eugenics framework for sure. If the medical professionals are consulting with you and they are not educated on what it means to give the diagnosis, what a life for a person with Down syndrome, what it would look like, and they're giving you incorrect facts about lifespan, then you are contributing to a eugenics framework. And I really strongly believe that, and I feel like that the United States can go that way too.
Going to what I started with, the freak out I had, you're so susceptible to hearing all that negative information.
Yes.
Short lifespan, mentally deficient, unhappy, all
medical conditions, all these diseases they're more likely to get.
And there's truth to a lot of that. There's half truth to all this stuff, but then you think, I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for this child. At least so far in his first 13 years, this guy's a happy man.
Exactly.
And so to say my life is worth living. Now, this is not. How do you get that message without running into the abortion debate that is still just the abortion debate?
Right. Well, I think you do. I think you say, listen, you can't deny these people with Down syndrome, research dollars or medical care because you think that they're going to go away because of prenatal testing. I think there is something to that theory. Nobody can prove it, but I think that there is this kind of myth that the people with Down syndrome, their numbers are decreasing. In the United States, there is actually a population explosion of people with Down syndrome. We've got to get that across. The lifespan has doubled since the 1980s, and the live births every year has gone from 1 in 1,000 in 2002 to 1 in 700 today. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that means population explosion. However, if we go to this kind of eugenics framework like Iceland and others, and we're promoting that, this is a horrible life, this is not a life worth living at the point of diagnosis, who knows, what that would mean. Now, of course, the United States and Iceland are very different, where our makeup is different, but I think it's important to say that we are different. There is a eugenics framework out in the world. We don't want that to happen. We want accurate information at the point of diagnosis, whether it's prenatal or at birth. And our Quincy Jones Award winner this year is Madeline Stewart from Australia. And she is someone who has limited vocabulary. Some people call her nonverbal. I don't like calling her nonverbal because she has lots of words. And so you'll see her at the fashion show on Saturday.
Funny you put it that way.
Yeah, she has lots of words.
Because
she has lots of words.
My son, I say nonverbal, which is, you're right, it's wrong. I mean, he's too damn verbal.
Yeah.
It's just that nobody can understand what he's saying.
Yes.
But he is saying a lot.
A lot.
And it's a shame you don't get. All right, we're talking about the award winner. We're talking about the fashion show.
Yes.
People might not know what we're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
let's jump to that.
Let's finish it up with this.
Yes.
One of the things Global does, which I think turns it on its head, is a fashion show.
Absolutely.
Now these were kids, they're Mongols. These were the ugly people.
Yeah.
What a great idea to flip the paradigm. No, these are the beautiful people.
These are the beautiful people.
And let's have a fashion show starring them, plus all the other superstars.
Yes.
How long have you been doing the fashion show? And I'll be there on Saturday night. But
thank you. Ninth year.
You're kidding.
No, it's fabulous.
And it's huge.
It's huge. And we've got Quincy Jones coming back to give his award. We've got Jamie Foxx. We've got Matt Dillon. We've got Marissa Tomei, Joe Manganiello. We've got Eva Longoria getting the other Quincy Award, Dennis O'Hare. I mean, it's amazing. And then we have Marcus Sikora and Deandra Dixon, of course. But Madeline Stewart is a superstar model. She's in Fashion Week in Paris, in Milan, in New York. And she is a person with Down syndrome who is determined, has a limited vocabulary, but nothing is going to stand in her way, or nothing has stood in her way from living her dream.
What's odd is a lot of fundraising events, because there's just too many to go to. A lot of them pull on your heartstrings by showing you, the brave case of somebody soldiering through and the suffering of this.
Yeah.
And I get that because it's real. What you've done with this, and I just leave it on this, what a fun thing to go.
Yeah.
No, I want to do what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a party.
You want to be
it's
them.
different.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, people want to get information. Where do they go?
Yes, they go to globaldownsyndrome.org or they go to bebeautifulbeyourself.org for our fashion show.
And if people just want to plug in and learn a little bit more,
Yeah.
You've got a magazine, but also I'm assuming you've got the newsletter and all the other things that people want to do.
Absolutely. Down Syndrome World Magazine, please subscribe. It's great.
And if you know people who are dealing with this particularly early on, let them know.
Yeah, call us. We've got a great prenatal testing pamphlet. We're there for you.
Michelle, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay tuned.